From the Delta Sky Club
Welcome back, Miss Klein.
to the Jet Bridge, Delta Airlines relies on 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to power operations and serve customers faster. Together, we're putting 5G into the hands of ground staff so they can better assist on-the-go travelers with real-time information throughout the airport. This is elevating customer experience. This is Delta Airlines with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food, no matter what you're craving. From 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings. Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week all season long. Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now for game day. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we're world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. Schmeelk, Citak with you. Your phone calls at 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. They're replaying Good Morning Football right now. They're showing Sarah Walsh and Jamie Erdahl out there in Munich. We will be departing for Germany in about, the plane will take off in about 8 hours or so, and we'll be off to Deutschland, arriving tomorrow morning around 10 o'clock, I think, give or take. Got a little walkthrough in the afternoon. Then Saturday's not a whole lot going on. And then obviously Sunday, kickoff in Germany at 3:30, 9:30 a.m. kickoff here. Coverage on WFAN with our pregame show begins at 7:30. Mr. Citak, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Had to pack. I hate the fact that right now in Germany, it's like a high of 48. It's like never going to even crest over 50 degrees while we're out there. And that means in what's a very small overhead compartment compatible bag, you have to fit like a winter coat into it. And it makes things very difficult.
Yeah, especially when it's 72 and sunny here.
Correct. Yes. And so you want to wear the coat to like the airport and then wear it on the plane because it's a really warm here.
Yep.
And I just don't like having to. The winter coat makes packing efficiently very difficult, and I don't enjoy that. So that was my game last night, trying to fit my winter coat into my
and you were
suitcase.
able to do it.
Yeah, barely. It was one of those like push down on the top with the elbow while you wrap your hand around and try to get the zipper going.
Have the kids jump on the bag
yes,
while you zipper.
Correct. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what was going on last night. No question about it. Giants taking on the Carolina Panthers, folks. You know, here, we always have the utmost respect for our opponents, and they're an NFL football team, and you have to play well to win every one of these games. With that said, the Panthers are not a very good football team right now. You look at any of the numbers, folks, any of the efficiency numbers on offense and defense, you're looking at a bottom 3 team in the National Football League. 30th yards per game, 30th EPA per play, 32nd yards allowed per game, 32nd allowed success rate, 32nd defensive DVOA, 31st offensive DVOA. It's rough. They have trouble moving the football. Their offensive line, ironically, actually is playing pretty well this year. It's everything else that's going on around that offensive line that's a problem. So let's start with where their strengths are. I mentioned the offensive line. They spend big money on 2 guards in the offseason. They've played well. Damian Lewis and
Jonah Jackson.
Thank you. Jonah Jackson is the second guy they have in that offensive line. No, Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt is the other guy they paid.
Jonah Jackson went to Detroit.
Yes, correct. So Robert Hunt. Ike Ekwonu, who doesn't look like he's going to play at left tackle, which means Brady Christensen will move out there, and Cade Mays will slide in at center. Taylor Moton's a solid right tackle. So they have a pretty good offensive line. I think you like that Brian Burns matchup against Brady Christensen. If you can get that, he's got very short arms. He has been playing center for them. They would slide him out, slide in Cade Mays over to center. So that's a strength. And the other strength, and he just got rewarded today, is their running back. Chuba Hubbard's playing really well this year. If you're a fantasy player, go to your fantasy league and click on his game log. He's got like 80 to 100 yards in every single game he's since he's taken over, getting the majority of carries for this team. They just gave him a 4-year, $32 million contract extension. Kind of weird considering that they just
traded up to take a running back in the second round.
I forgot they traded up. They traded up to get him.
They gave up, I think, like 2 fifth-round picks or something like that.
And they were not a team that was in position to be trading extra draft picks after that Bryce Young trade.
Exactly.
I forgot they traded up for him.
They moved up like 7 spots to take him.
Ooh, boy.
Just to hand Chuba Hubbard, who deserves the extension.
Oh, he's playing really well.
But it's interesting decision. But
yes, interesting.
Go there.
Interesting roster building plans there. But look, a lot of teams have 2 really good running backs, and it works. Look at the Lions with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. But the Lions did that after they built a thing around them. Anyway, not important. They can run the football.
Yes.
We could see Jonathan Brooks for the first time this week as well. I talked to Joe Person yesterday. He does a great job covering the Panthers for The Athletic. That will be in the John Siddle podcast on Friday. And he thinks he's going to get his first action. How much action he's going to get, we'll have to wait and see. But the Panthers can run the football. So if there's one thing that they can do well, it's run the football. And that's where I'll start.
Yeah, I mean, Chuba Hubbard, and you mentioned he's got averaging 73.9 yards per game, 5 yards per carry, which you'd have to think, if the Panthers weren't playing from behind just about every single week, that
pretty much.
That 665 rushing yards on the season would probably be a decent amount higher if he had gotten more opportunities. But yeah, look, he's, as you said, he got rewarded. He's a good running back. Jonathan Brooks was a very good running back at Tennessee.
Texas.
What? Who was I? Oh, Jalen
Wright.
Wright.
Jalen Wright.
And everyone mixed up today.
Yeah, it's okay.
The same colors,
Yeah, it is the same colors. You're right. But remember, he only got to play 1 year there because they had Roshan Johnson and they had Bijan Robinson, all those guys. So he got the 1 year and he made the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, he looked great. It's been, I think, just about a year since he tore his ACL. I know it was last November. I don't know when exactly in November.
Close enough.
Little surprise. I mean, I guess the Panthers don't have a ton to play for, because otherwise a little surprised it's taken him this long to sort of get activated from the NFI list. He just got activated yesterday, the last possible day they had in the 21-day window.
I think they're just taking their time. Why rush him?
Look, they're a 2-7 team that clearly was realistic about their chances of contending this season, knowing it would be a long shot, which it clearly is. And so they played the slow game with him, which, I guess that's smart in the long run. Just going back to the Chuba Hubbard extension, it's a little interesting to me to, give Chuba Hubbard this 4-year extension when you haven't even seen the second-round rookie play yet, a single snap. But nonetheless, they definitely can run the ball. Even Miles Sanders has had some success running the ball this season when, it seemed like he was completely done.
They spent money on him, 2 years ago in free agency, right?
Yep. And they also have a talented group of wide receivers. Young wide receivers.
Yeah.
Young. They traded Deontay Johnson last week to the Baltimore Ravens, sort of as like a shift to the youth movement. We had already seen rookie Xavier Legette get a good amount of playing time. He had already become one of the starting wide receivers because in the beginning of the season, veteran Adam Thielen got hurt, went on injured reserve. It doesn't look like he's going to make it for this game. So Xavier Legette has really stepped up. He's gotten, how many touchdowns does he have on the season? 4 touchdowns on the season. Touchdowns in 2 straight games, 3 of the last 4. He's really played well. And then this guy kind of came out of nowhere, Jalen Coker.
And you guys know how many people I watch in the draft. My brother asked me this. He was trying to pick him up in his fantasy league. He goes, John, tell me about Jalen Coker. I knew the draft. Pete, I got to be honest with you. I have no idea who Jalen Coker is.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's an undrafted rookie wide receiver from Holy Cross. Not really a big name, but 2 weeks ago he had 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown against the Broncos, who the Broncos have a good pass defense.
No, he's been a good player.
He played well. Not as much last week, only 2 catches for 36 yards, but Coker and Legette are going to be the starting wide receivers now moving forward, at least until potentially Thielen returns.
And they also traded Jonathan Mingo for the 4th round pick.
That's true. They just traded Jonathan Mingo as well. So clearly the Panthers are focusing on, the youth movement. They have who might have been my favorite tight end going into the draft, Jatavian Sanders, who is just starting to really kind of get it going. They're starting to use him more, play him more. He had 4 catches for a season-high 87 yards last week. 2 weeks prior to that, 6 catches for 61 yards. The week before that, 5 for 49. So they're really starting to implement him more into the offense.
He can catch it.
He can definitely catch the ball. So, yeah, this is a very young football team, similar to the Giants. It seems like especially on the offensive side of the ball. We haven't even talked about Bryce Young, who's going to be starting under center, second-year quarterback. He's clearly had his ups and downs. I would say the last 2 weeks have definitely been more up than down for him. He's looked a lot better these last 2 games than he did the first 2 weeks of the season, which is all he got before he got benched for Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton then subsequently got into a minor car accident, suffered a sprained thumb. He's been out, and Bryce Young has taken advantage of this opportunity to sort of retake, at least temporarily, the starting quarterback spot. A touchdown and 171 yards last week, completed 61.5% of his throws. The week before that, completed nearly 65% of his throws, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, he has thrown 3 interceptions total in these last 2 games. He also threw 3 interceptions in the first 2 games. So if there was ever an opportunity for the Giants to finally get on track in the interception department, because Giants have only had 1, and it came from linebacker Darius Muasau in the season opener, this would certainly be the matchup to, get back on track.
Here's a nugget for you. Did you know the Giants have not won the turnover battle in any game this year?
I did not realize that.
I didn't realize it either. I was looking at it today. They've been even in a couple of games. They have not won the turnover battle in any game this year.
Are you sure?
I'm
seeing
pretty sure about that. I looked it up
Football
today.
Reference. The first Commanders game, one take. Oh no, sorry. I'm looking at it the opposite way. The offensive.
Yeah.
Again, just getting everything swapped around today. Yeah.
Bizarro Citak today on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
You're right. We've not won the turnover battle once.
Which, by the way, might explain why your record maybe is underperforming some of your underlying stats a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, look, as we've said, they have 1 interception on defense.
6
1
fumble
interception.
recoveries.
It's tough to win the turnover battle with only 1 interception through your first 9 games.
Yeah, the Giants are tied for 24th. They're -4. The Panthers are one of the teams that's worse than they are. They are -7, tied for 27th. Yeah, so the Giants this year, even versus Minnesota in week 1, -1 to Washington in week 2, even versus Cleveland in week 3, -1 versus Dallas in week 4, even with Seattle, even with Cincinnati, even with Philly, -1 versus Pittsburgh, -1 versus Washington. So that's been their turnover ratio game by game so far this year. So there's something to keep an eye on, but yeah, if there's ever a week to turn that around, it'll be this week against Bryce Young, who, I'm rooting for the kid. I hope he has success because I think he's a smart kid. I think he's a good player. It just has not worked out so far for him. Just let's not have it start this week in Germany, please. And then their defense real quick. I have trouble finding a strength here, to be honest with you. They don't rush the passer well. Jadeveon Clowney's a vet. He's there. Charles Harris is a vet. He's there, but no one that really scares you as a pass rusher. J.C. Horn is probably their best player on defense at cornerback. They play a lot of single high, a lot of man, a lot of mostly cover 3, some man. So I wonder how much they're going to travel J.C. Horn with Malik Neighbors. I talked to Joe Person. He said that's something that they don't do consistently, but they do sometimes. So we'll have to wait and see how they handle that part of it. But the Giants can kind of pick their method of attack here. It's like the old choose your weapon situation. If you want to run it against this defense, go right ahead. If you want to pass it against this defense, go right ahead. They have not had success really stopping either this year, to be totally honest with you. So my thought is that they'll probably try to attack the same way they attacked last week against the Commanders and try to run it early to see if that works. You can always quickly pivot to the pass if your run game isn't having that same ridiculous 6 to 7 yards per play number that they had in the first half against Washington last week. But look, you can try to move the ball however you want against this Panthers defense. They have not really shown the ability to stop either the run or the pass.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start with the secondary because I do agree J.C. Horn is probably their best player on the defensive side of the ball. And I will say that similar to, Bryce Young and sort of the whole Panthers team coming off a win last week against the Saints, J.C. Horn and his fellow starting cornerback Mike Jackson, coming off probably their best game of the season as a duo because they combine to allow 0 receptions as in coverage as the nearest defender last week against the Saints. Granted,
How quickly did Olave go out in that game?
I was literally about to say, granted, Chris Olave left, I believe, in the first quarter.
It was the first quarter. Okay.
And
I wasn't
they
sure.
were
I wasn't
already-
sure when he got hurt. I knew he got hurt. I
It
didn't
was
know when.
definitely in the first half. I think it was the first quarter. They also, earlier in the season lost Rashid Shaheed. They don't really have any wide receivers, so the guys that they were guarding last week against the Saints, not the highest, level of competition, but nonetheless, they did their job against who was out there, and they did well. And that cornerback duo actually both rank inside the top 15 in pass breakups this season. So those two guys are solid players. I will say that they have, while they were great last week and didn't give up any receptions and coverage, for the season, those numbers are not nearly as good as last week.
I remember a lot of pass breakups means that you're also just getting thrown at a lot.
Yes, that is for sure. But J.C. Horn has given up 5 touchdowns on the season, 251 yards. Mike Jackson has given up 4 touchdowns, but 451 yards. So the two of them have definitely had their moments struggling in coverage, but last week was a step in the right direction. We'll see if they can carry it over. And then in terms of their front seven, the Panthers have blitzed about league average, 30.3% of opposing teams' dropbacks, but have the second lowest pressure rate when they do blitz. So
Not what you're
similar
looking
to
for.
kind of like what we saw with the Giants defense last week, despite a decent amount of blitzes, they are just not generating pressure on the season. And you can see that by just looking at their sack numbers. I mean, Charles Harris is their leading sacker with 3 on the season. And former Giant Ashawn Robinson is second with only 2.
And what does Clowney have? Does he have 2 also, or no?
Clowney has 1.
One,
I mean, as a
okay.
team, they only have 10 sacks.
I know. It's like I said, it's hard to find the strength when you look at it. And fans might not know this. Dave Canales is their head coach. He got hired this offseason. Brad Idzik is their offensive coordinator, and Ijiro Evero, who's actually a pretty well thought of defensive coordinator, is their DC. So that's the Panthers. Guys, look, I think this is a chance to put up a 30 spot here. Move the ball, throw it deep, throw it short, run it, play action. Bring out the kitchen sink here, guys. You should be able to move the ball and score some points against this Panthers defense. They've had trouble stopping people all year. You look at some of the overall metrics. If this continues, some of their efficiency ratings is going to be some of the lowest we've ever seen from a defense over the course of a year in NFL history, or since they started tracking these things. So you should be able to move the football here overseas. And the Giants are 3-0 in Europe games, so hopefully that'll keep up.
And this is the first time the Giants are favored in a game since week 2 of last year, the Arizona Cardinals game.
Sounds right.
They were about, I think, 5-point favorites around that. This is a good of an opportunity as the Giants are going to get for just a get-right game. Get both sides of the ball firing on all cylinders, and hopefully get a nice, good win to make you feel good heading into the bye. And then you come out in the second half of the season and a little healthier, and who knows what could happen.
The best part of football season? Checking out the post-game stats. Which wideout scored more than 2 touchdowns? Which QBs threw for less than 350 yards? Think you can pick who will do what before kickoff? Then play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, select between 2 and 6 players, and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. It's that simple. And for all first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5 on your first pick set, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code DK1. That's code DK1 for new customers to play $5 on your first pick set, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable. Pick 6 credits. Expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
I'm not looking for style points and just win the game any way you can. But I'd love to see like a nice, sitting there in the booth in Munich at the start of the fourth quarter, you're up 3 scores, and you could just be like, all right, this is nice. You don't have to stress out for like the last 15 minutes of this game. You can just run the clock out. You can be a little conservative. Let's not have this go down to the final drive of the fourth quarter, please.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, no game is a guarantee, as we've come to learn.
That's why I opened the show that way, by the way.
By no means are we saying that there's a guaranteed win or anything like that. But I will just say that
there are no guaranteed wins for the New York Football Giants.
For anyone.
No, for anyone. That's
for
correct.
anyone across the NFL. But I will just say that on paper, this matchup bodes well for the Giants. I mean, you look at some of the Giants' strengths, it matches up well with Carolina's weaknesses, and in particular, like Bryce Young, for example. According to Next Gen Stats, he releases the ball a full second after he faces pressure, which is the 5th longest time to throw. And obviously, as we know, the Giants have been getting pressure at a very high rate. And when they have been getting pressure, they've been able to convert them to sacks this season at the highest rate in the NFL. Similarly, some of the Giants, you could say weaknesses, match up pretty well with Carolina in what areas that they have also been struggling with this year. Again, going back to Bryce Young, against zone coverage, he has never thrown a touchdown pass. In the
Is that true?
18 games or so, 20 games that he's played, 21, he has never thrown a touchdown in 444 pass attempts against zone coverage. Well, I'm just saying.
I know you are
the Giants
pulling a Datino here.
The Giants, but I'm saying the Giants have struggled in that area this season.
They have. You're right.
They have struggled in zone coverage. They have a 102.5 passer rating, which is the 3rd highest in the league. That they've surrendered to the other team in zone coverage this season. But again, even though that's been a struggle for the Giants, it matches up with what Carolina has also struggled with.
And we should point out, the way we're talking about this, you know what? I don't know if the Panthers do a show like this, but if they are, you know what they're saying?
They're probably saying similar things.
Hey, the Giants have the 32nd ranked scoring offense in the league. No one scores fewer points than the Giants. If there's ever a game that we can go out there and win because the other teams can't score enough points, this is the game.
Yeah.
This is the game. Let's go out to Germany when it'll be the first time Bryce Young ever won consecutive games in his career if he wins this game today, if he wins the game on Sunday. So the Panthers are saying the exact same thing. But the Giants have a superiority in terms of talent, even though the records are the same, and they need to make sure that talent utilizes those advantages to their max. But look, the Panthers are going into this game probably excited that, look, the Giants have lost a bunch of close games this year. We keep this game close. And that's why I don't want to keep this game close in the fourth quarter. That's kind of my point, right? The Giants have had such a propensity for figuring out a way to lose so many of these close games that let's not leave that to chance, right? Have a couple score lead. Don't let the Panthers have the ball with a chance to win or tie at the end of the game. Don't let it get there. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. It's an NFL football game. But try to make this going into the bye a nice feel-good experience. That would be really, really nice with a 8-hour, 7-hour flight home from Munich on Sunday night, rolling into like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it definitely would. And look, when your record is 2-7, doesn't matter who you are, the opponent that you're facing that week is going to look at you and be like, all right, this is a good get-right matchup for us. And now both teams enter this game at 2-7. So
2 of the 7 teams in the NFL that are 2-7, and another 2 are 2-6. So
yeah, so look, you're right. We can stand up here and give all these positive stats onto why this matchup is good for the Giants, but you're right. People down in Carolina probably pointing out some of the Giants' weaknesses and saying the same thing. That's why every Sunday you got to go out there and actually play all 60 minutes in order to get the W.
And you can't – the Giants are not in a situation – look, if you're the Ravens and you show up and play your B-minus game against a team like the Panthers, you might have a chance to still win that game, right? The Giants can't afford to show up and play their B-minus game against anybody because they can lose to anybody in this league, right? If they play their A-plus game, they could probably beat most teams in this league too.
Yep.
But you can't go up there and play your B- game, because if the Panthers come and play their A+ game, you can lose. And you could lose by a score or two, depending on how that game goes. So just something to keep in mind. 201-939-4513. Go subscribe to the John Settle podcast, folks. Fun episode coming up today. I don't think that's up there yet, but the UK and Irish Big Blue podcast, right? That's correct. Thank you. Or maybe the Big Blue UK Ireland podcast, I think.
That's
right?
the order.
I got it reversed. Sorry. Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. 3 guys from that show came on, joined me. We talked mostly Giants. We did a little stuff about overseas football, but it was mostly Giant stuff. We did a lot of German talk. If you want to talk about Germany, go check out the episode I did on Marcus Kuhn a couple days ago. A lot of stuff about the Germans in that one.
Crazy that they could barely get tickets to the game.
They said at one point,
there's a million people in the queue.
Here's a tease, that they had some people trying to get tickets to the Germany game. They were up to more than 1 million people in the queue to buy tickets for the game.
Wow.
And the guy's like, yeah, once you see the million there, you're probably not going to get tickets. Yeah, you're probably not. And the one guy that got him for the podcast, and I think 3 or 4 of them were going, I think he said he was something like
140,000?
140,000th on the queue to buy tickets, and he managed to get some of the last couple that were left for their group. So
good for them.
Germans love David Hasselhoff. Germans also love American football. So I think they are going to be pumped up for that game on Sunday. For the fans that aren't familiar with the history, by the way, I wish I had Paul here. You can talk to about this tomorrow when you're on with him. But for fans that remember, the older fans that remember the World League, that was around in the 90s in the NFL basically, folks, had a summer developmental league in Europe. So they send all these guys over there that, similar to XFL or, the UFL, right? Is that so a league? Combined, or the XUFL?
Just combined.
I think they combined to the UFL, right?
I think so.
United, I think, Football League, or whatever. It was the same deal, except they played in Europe. And you started with around, 8 teams, and the league eventually contracted to where they were down to, I think, to 6. And 5 of those 6 teams were in Germany. So it was the most popular place for American football. You had the Rhine Fire, Frankfurt Galaxy, Berlin Thunder. There was one other one. I remember the 4th one. But Germans love American football. There's a lot of people playing it over there. The World League?
Yeah.
Probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Is that because the Giants have played a preseason game in Germany?
That was in the early 90s,
so
correct.
I'm assuming it had to do with this league.
I think it was promoting the World League.
I was only born in October of 1992, so I cannot say I remember that.
Yeah, the World League then eventually became NFL Europe, so it kind of changed titles. The World League was that was the World League football in the 70s. World League of American Football. I will find the details on that. Founded in 1991. That was NFL Europe. Anyway, I will happily go through it with you guys. But let's get to your calls first. We got people holding, and I'll gather my information on the World League, which I do remember. Let's go to Scott in New Mexico. Scott, you'll lead us off today. Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys. How you doing today?
We're good.
Hey, Scott.
I'm always wary. I've listened to your conversation, and I believe each game is its own entity.
Of course.
So, and I think you said it. I'm always wary when we think we should win a game, and we go in with the mindset that we are going to win, and then maybe 1 or 2 plays go against us for reasons unbeknownst to us that we don't anticipate, and then we lose. But I'm having a difficult time, as I was talking to Pearson earlier, about looking at some of the stats which were surprising. And I wonder if you can verify, because I've watched all the Giant games this year, and I'm just a little confused. I was looking at one stat, for example, which surprised me, and that was 3rd down conversions. The Giants are actually tied for 10th in the league. They're in the top 10 in preventing 3rd down conversions. They're tied with Houston. And that's a pretty amazing feat for this defense as I'm looking at it based on the record. And then I looked at which team has given up the most plays of 10 yards or more this season. The Giants are 18th. But if you go through the next 4 teams past the Giants who are doing worse, in this order, it's the Texans, Commanders, the Vikings, and the Lions. And so what I don't understand, this is off of StatMuse that I'm looking at right now.
No, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
I don't understand where the disconnect is for the Giants. I've watched the games. I've seen what's transpired.
That's a good question.
I know. I just don't. Maybe Matt, because you're more involved with stats, you can answer it. But the Giants should be doing better based on some of the stats I'm looking at. And I'm just quoting two.
Are you talking defense specifically, Scott, or you're saying overall?
Well, defense overall, I think the Giants were 18th, I think. But
yeah, they're around like 21st in defensive DVOA. So that, you know.
Okay. But where the usual problems are when you're giving up chunk plays, I thought the Giants would be, like one of the worst teams based on what I've been looking at. Yet I just read off to you the next four teams that are below the Giants will all have obviously the opposite records that the Giants have. So what I'm trying to ask in my own way is, I know there's problems on offense, and they've had trouble scoring the ball. But when they did score the ball, the defense sort of let them down a little bit. But I don't consider that to be a big letdown in any stretch of the imagination. So the question I'm really asking is, as I just read off those two stats, and the Giant defense looks like it's in command, and the offense may not be, is the responsibility of the coaches to I guess I'm asking why there is such a disconnect when I look at stats, and it looks favorable for the Giants, yet they're not performing up to snuff. I realize there's tackling issues and other things that come into play, and I just don't understand why I'm looking at what I'm looking at, and the Giants have the record they have. So maybe you can explain. I mean, it's really probably tough to explain why the Giants are failing.
It's a really good question, and I'll do my best to explain it to you. So the way I see it is that, look, the offense has been poor this year. They have not scored enough points. And overall, the defense has been stronger than the offense when you look at them in aggregate,
Correct.
right? So when you have a team that's literally scoring the fewest points in the National Football League, even if you're ranked right at the bottom of the second third, or the very, basically that would be around the third quartile of teams in terms of where you are, in terms of where you rank. While that's okay, it's certainly not good enough to make up for a team that's 32nd in scoring, right? If the Giants were like 21st in scoring and 21st in defense, they'd probably have 2 or 3 more wins, and they'd be around 500, right? But that's not where they are. They're 32nd in offensive scoring, and they're, in the low 20s in terms of a lot of those, efficiency-based defensive metrics. They're around 20, 21st, 22nd, 18th, depending on what stats you look at. So third downs have been okay. Big plays, I think they're 19th or 20th in pass plays of 20 or more yards. Now, that's creeped up a lot in the last couple of games. That's been worse. The rush defense, I think, is a bigger problem than the stats might let on, because the Giants played 3 games against teams this year that just didn't have any interest in running the football. They didn't try, really, in Seattle, Dallas, and I'm forgetting what the third team was in there. There was one of the teams that didn't really want to run the ball much. I forget. Maybe Cleveland, maybe. I don't think they ran the ball a ton in that game. So I think that's making the rush defense maybe not look as bad as it might in reality be, based on what we've seen the last few weeks. And the last thing, Scott, I'll say, and then I'll let Matt get his take, because I'd love to see what his opinion is on this. And we mentioned this earlier in the show. The Giants have not won the turnover ratio in a game this year. And that is the biggest predictor in the National Football League as to who's going to win a game. And when you can't even get to +1, I'd love a +2 or +3 in there. Other teams get these +2, +3 games. That gives you a 70-80% chance of winning. When you can't even get to +1, all these defensive metrics you listed, which again are fine, they're okay, they're not great, but they're fine. If you don't have those big plays to take the ball away, let alone maybe can you get a defensive score? Like, other teams get defensive scores. They give their offense the ball inside the 20 or 30-yard line, and it goes the other way too. You want the Giants' offense to score more points? How about giving them a short field once in a while? How many times have the Giants started on the other team's 25-yard line this year? Once? Twice? Maybe? I'd have to go through the drive logs. I'm not doing that now. But it sure doesn't feel like it's happened an awful lot to me, Matt. I don't know about you. So that, I think, Scott, in my opinion, and then I'd love to get Matt's take, is probably why you haven't seen some of the good defensive metrics translate.
Yeah, just to your last point, I will say I was curious when you started talking. I looked at the 2022 Giants and how they did in the turnover battle. I'm counting at least 8 games where they won the turnover battle with numerous games where they won it by more than one.
Yep.
So I do think that has played a big part in the Giants having the record that they have at this point. The other thing I will say is, as you mentioned, Scott, I love giving out stats to you guys, but they don't always tell the whole story. And you brought up the third down conversions, and on paper, the Giants have been pretty good on defense on third down conversions. They're actually tied for 9th with the Houston Texans in stopping the opponent to convert on a third down. But if you go back to like the Eagles game, the Giants lost 28-3. I think we can all agree that that was a big loss, and the Giants they got handled like from start to finish. But if you look at what the Eagles did on third down in that game, they went 1 for 13. And they still, blew the Giants out that game.
Also, look at what the Giants' rate is of stopping teams on fourth down. I feel like when teams have went for it on fourth down against the Giants, do you have that handy? Can you check that quickly?
They are 27th in the league.
Right. So
9 of 13.
Those
They've
third
given
downs.
up a fourth down.
So those third down stops don't matter a whole lot more if you add the fourth down conversions to it, right? Because you aren't getting the team off the field. That's a great point.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
So all I just wanted to add, you pretty much nailed it, John. I just wanted to add that when you look at all of these stats, which they are telling, but you gotta obviously read them in context.
Everything. I got it. One last question, I'll let you guys go. In the game that we just played, they were running the ball, and as you said, I think on an early broadcast, they were averaging 7 yards. And then towards the end of that drive, they stopped. Now, I've always been taught that if you can't stop a play, you just keep running it until somebody can stop you.
Wait, which drive did they stop running?
The first drive, I think, when
they threw one pass on a screen.
They threw one pass, right? Yeah, but they didn't have to throw anything. I don't just cite this one example. Detroit was playing the Rams, and they went into overtime. Realizing they're different teams, Detroit, in overtime, never threw the ball once. Marched down the field and won in overtime. They scored a touchdown. And I was thinking the same thing as I watched the game. Why do anything different if everything is working? And that's the thing that I find. And some of the things seem typical as I watch each game, that why are they doing this when something else should be working or is working for them and they don't do it? And so is it an issue with coaching, or is it an issue with just the simple execution of a play and they're not converting? Because it seems like that seems to be one of the bigger problems the Giants have. And on that, I'll take the answers off the air and let you get back to your next caller.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate the call. Look, I think it's just poor execution on a play. I mean, you had the one to Wanda Robinson that lost, 6 yards?
Yep.
And then I think they ended up still converting a first down on that particular drive, though, if I remember correctly, right? On that particular series of downs, I think they ended up converting a first down anyway. And then on the next series of downs is when they had the sack fumble on the other attempted screen when Chris Hubbard got ran around a little bit too quickly. I think that's what happened, if I remember correctly. I don't have the play-by-play in front of me. You do. But, look, I can't – they ran it.
Yep.
They passed it 6 times in the first half, and they ran it, 20 times, whatever they ran in that first half?
Even more, I think 22
or something like that. So I can't. Everyone was saying they didn't pass it enough. Now, Scott, and I told Scott, I actually understand your point more than I understand the other point, that they shouldn't – why pass it at all when you're running at 7 yards per carry? I get where you're coming from in that, but I can't lose my mind over 6 passes and a half.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a stat line at halftime of a quarterback with 4 completions for 0 yards and a passing touchdown.
Did you see what his passer rating was in the first half?
No.
4 for 6? I believe it was 112.
With
4
0
for 6,
yards?
0 yards at a touchdown.
That's great.
Just shows you how ridiculous passer rating can be. When you have 0 net passing yards, you can have a 100 quarterback rating. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Nice touchdown throw to Chris Manhertz, though.
It was after he got
nice
one
play
taken
by
off
both
the board
sides.
a couple weeks prior. Or 1 week prior, right?
From hobby farmers to weekend gardeners and everyone in between, Tractor Supply trusts 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to make shopping more personal. Together, we're connecting over 2,200 stores with 5G business internet and powering AI so team members can match shoppers with products faster.
You're all set.
This is enriching customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
And, I think that's part of the thing, too. A couple people lamenting about the team's offense, and I think they've actually moved the ball fairly well this year. And a big reason why they've had issues scoring points and why they're ranked last in terms of scoring points in the National Football League, quite frankly, is because the red zone offense has been so poor. Right now, the Giants are last in the NFL with a 40% red zone touchdown conversion rate. And by the way, it's more than 5% lower than the next worst team. Hello, Dallas Cowboys. So they're not that close to the team that's ahead of them. Now, there are a couple things I want to bring up in regards to that. And we are taking your calls, by the way. We have an open line, 201-939-4513. They had the series against the Browns where they were in the red zone. They kneeled it down at the end of the game. So that's a failure in that category that probably shouldn't count as a failure, but it technically does because of what it is. Then you also had a touchdown taken off the board with the Chris Manhurst touchdown. That got taken off the board with a penalty. And then there was another touchdown.
Wandell this past Sunday.
Yeah, and then Wandell this Sunday. Thank you. That got taken off the board with a touchdown. So those are 3 conversions that either the attempt should be taken off for the kneel down, or you could have 2 conversions the last 2 weeks on those 2 plays. But penalties and, of course, the kneel down took that away. So I think the overall number would look slightly better if you don't have those 3 individual plays, but it's still certainly not good enough, Matt. And given this team has run the ball a lot more successfully the last couple of weeks, you would hope the red zone numbers would get better, and I think they have been a little bit better the last couple of weeks. But if you want to consistently score more points, we talked about the takeaways generating some points, you got to score touchdowns when you get the chance. And even though this team has moved the ball better, the Giants are right now 26th in yards per game. Not great, but it's not 32nd, right? They're 20th in rushing yards, 19th in rushing yards per game, 23rd in passing yards per game. Those aren't awful numbers, but their lack of production in the red zone has really just killed their scoring offense. And they've missed a bunch of field goals too, which has made that scoring offense look worse.
Yeah, and I can't remember what game, but didn't Theo Johnson at one point have a touchdown taken away for an offensive pass interference as well?
You know what is funny?
I don't know if that was in the red zone.
I was thinking about it this morning, and I thought I remembered that play too, and I couldn't find it. I didn't have a chance to. I've been getting ready for Germany, so I didn't have a chance to do a full scouring of the box scores, but I vaguely remember that as well.
Yeah, I don't remember what game it was, and I
don't
even remember if it was necessarily in the red zone. Oh, no, yeah, so it was the Eagles game, and it was 3rd and 4 on the Eagles 10, and he threw that touchdown to Theo Johnson. They called it offensive pass interference, and then they had to kick a field goal.
That, I believe, was actually a good call, right? I think there was a real pick on that. Oh, no, yeah, that's what he pushed off the defender. That's right.
Yeah,
he pushed off. So you're right. So 3 red zone touchdowns taken off the boards due to penalties. And how many other drives, it wasn't actually on a touchdown, but they got inside the red zone, took penalties, and that messed up their drive. So when you get in there, you can't have these penalties and these mistakes. It's going to kill your touchdowns, which, again, kill your points, which prevent you from winning games.
Yeah. Got nothing else to add?
Yeah, it's just very frustrating.
They
have moved the ball okay. Like they moved the ball good enough? No, but it's been better than I think what we've seen the last couple of years is all.
Yeah, I mean, you have I don't know if there are more examples than just this, but this is the one that came to mind in the Steelers game when the Giants got the ball for once in the other team's territory to start the drive towards the end of the game, and they had it on the Steelers' 19-yard line, and then Daniel Jones gets strip sacked. And the Steelers recover the ball. That's another
red zone turnovers.
Yeah, another failed red zone attempt.
And did DJ have a?
The interception later was outside the red zone.
No, but he had a touchdown earlier in the year. Not a touchdown, but he had an interception in the red zone earlier in the year. Remember when he was trying to throw it away out of bounds?
Was that week 1, the Vikings game?
Yeah, I think it was week 1 against the Vikings. So that's another. So there's 2 red zone turnovers for you. We had 3 red zone touchdowns taken off the board due to penalties. So these are self-inflicted wounds, folks, where if you do those things a little bit better, your red zone percentage is going to look, again, it's not like you're going to go from 32nd to 10th.
Yeah.
But
it would look a little better.
You're not going to be sitting in the basement with like 2 floors of people above you before you get to the next worst team.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. 201-939-4513. Matt on Long Island. He's up next. Hi, Matt.
Hey, John. How are you?
We're good.
Okay, great. Listen, I just wanted to talk about Joe Shane for a little bit. And I want to start out saying I really like Shane. I like the moves he's made, draft picks, guys I would have wanted. But one little bone I want to pick with is the signing of Drew Lock. To me, that was just a waste of $5 million. I don't see the upside of him over DeVito, to be honest with you. He's not the future. I think you sign a guy like Locke if you're like maybe the Dolphins, right? They lost Tua. They fell off a cliff. He's the type of guy, maybe he wins you a game or two and keeps you afloat. But I don't think we needed that. We weren't that kind of team. I think DeVito proved last year that he was good enough to get you by for a couple of games if something happened. Because I don't think we were that good enough of a team. I think that money would have been better off spent getting a defensive tackle, like an Ashawn Robinson type, run stuffer. Because
would you have been okay,
earlier,
Matt? Just kind of curious, would you have been okay if they used that money on Tyrod?
No, because I really don't think we needed.
You don't think Tyrod is significantly better than DeVito?
100%. No, 100%.
Okay.
I do. But I just don't think our team is in that position where we needed that right now. I just don't see it.
Well,
no, but here's the thing, Matt. Remember, we know now, just real quick, and
I think you're about to hit what I was about to say.
And I will let you continue. When they signed Locke, they didn't know where Daniel was with his ACL yet. I think if you would have told them back then, and you could use your crystal ball and see that he's going to be 100% ready to go start of the year and fine, maybe they take a little bit different of a strategy there. But I think, given the injury with Daniel, Matt, I think maybe that's why they decided to be a little bit more aggressive. And according to Hard Knocks, they obviously did try to sign Tyrod first, and they just, the Jets threw too much money at him.
Right. Obviously, I agree with you on hindsight, but I still don't see that much of an upgrade with Locke over Vito. I mean, yes, he's probably a little better. He has a little more experience. But, I mean, the guy won 3 games last year. And I'm not trying to build him up. That's not where I'm going.
No, I got you.
I'm just saying I think we really needed defensive tackles who can stop the run. Because like you said earlier, a couple of teams didn't run on us, but they didn't try to run on us. I mean, Washington ran the ball down our throats the first game. It just seems like whenever we can't stop anybody, like the other game, we kicked the ball off with like 3.5 minutes left, and we can't stop anybody.
I would have loved to have Ashawn Robinson back. Look, Matt, I would have loved to have him back. They just couldn't make it work for whatever reason. But if that's your criticism, I understand where you're coming from with that.
I'll just say that obviously when it comes to the interior defensive line, Dexter Lawrence is one of the best in the league. They did sign Rakeem Nunez-Roches last year to a multi-year deal, and he's obviously back this year. And the contract that was reported is, close to what a yearly average to what Drew Lock is getting. And they also kind of assumed that between some of the younger defensive tackles on the roster, between, DJ Davidson, Jordan Riley, I think they were at least hoping that one of those guys would take a big jump this year. And I think they were kind of betting on the defensive line coach, Andre Patterson, who we talked about being one of the best in the league, helping those guys make a big jump and sort of solidify themselves as the, second or potentially third defensive tackle next to Dexter Lawrence and Nacho. So I think that was went into their, what I would think was went into their mindset.
I understand what you're saying, Matt. I just didn't see it. I didn't see DJ Davidson being that great. And Nunez-Roches to me is a nice backup guy. Not a major run stuffer. He could kind of do a little bit of both, I think. To kind of get to the passer, can kind of stop a run.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's fair.
I don't think he's the, to be honest with you, I would have, now I don't know what happened. Obviously, I don't know what practices are like or anything. I really wanted to see Riley in there a little more on running downs to see what he's a big human being.
Yeah, man, I'll be honest with you. We saw it was the final drive against the Eagles, and since it was a 3-score game at that point, or maybe 2-score game at that point in the fourth quarter, they gave Dexter Lawrence that one particular drive at the end of the Eagle game a break. He didn't play the whole drive. And they had Jordan Riley in there for him. And he was moved off of the ball on that drive very, very consistently. And he has not been active since that game. So I think that was kind of like, all right, we'll give him a shot. Okay. We got to find somebody else. And I think Armand Watts actually got brought up from the practice squad, if I'm not mistaken, the week after that, and he got active. He got He got activated, and he got put on the 53-man roster. So Watts has actually been pretty good. He's been okay. So hopefully he can get some more snaps, and he can kind of slide in and do a little bit better job.
And I also think while he's mostly been used in pass rushing situations, but Elijah Chapman has showed some flashes this season as an undrafted rookie.
He has.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the second half of the season out of the bye week. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts getting a little more opportunity.
He's been playing around like 8 to 12 snaps a game, depending on the week, something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. He's a little more of a pass rusher than a run stopper.
For sure.
I agree with
because
that.
of his size,
Yeah. And who was there a guy that they brought in named Macy? Was playing defensive line for one game late? Was it against the Eagles, or did I see the wrong name?
I know on the practice squad
that was terrible.
There's Casey Rogers on the practice squad, but I don't think he's been elevated this season.
He is not.
I might have just read. I just may have read the wrong name, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" And then I never seen him again, so I might have just.
Do you know what number he was wearing by any chance offhand?
No. It was a couple of weeks ago, and maybe it was Riley, and I don't know.
That actually did just remind me that it wasn't like a big money deal in the offseason, but.
Appreciate it, Matt. Thank you for the call, buddy.
But Joe Shane actually did sign a veteran defensive tackle in the offseason, and Jordan Phillips. That obviously, given what happened during training camp and the preseason, the Giants didn't think that he was going to get much playing time and were able to trade him to Dallas and get a pick swap. I think they swapped a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick.
Who has since been released.
Exactly. The Cowboys released him, but the Giants did sign him as a guy that's been around the league for years, had previous success as a pass rusher in the NFL. I think he had a season of 9 sacks. Granted, that was 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't think I guess it's necessarily fair to say that Joe Shane ignored that spot altogether, because they had some young guys that they were sort of banking on their development. They brought in a guy like Jordan Phillips. Obviously, it didn't end up working out.
And A'Shawn got a big deal. He got a 3-year, $22 million contract.
Yeah, that was when he signed that. I was like, wow, that is more than I thought he would get. And
now he
was good last year.
He played really well against the run last year.
When the Giants traded Leonard Williams last year, he stepped up in a very big way. I just didn't think he was going to get that much money. And
we'll see A'Shawn this week when they play the Panthers.
Yeah, but obviously it was great for him.
Yep.
And again, when looking at the roster construction for this season, going into week 10, it's obviously a little easier to look back in hindsight and say, should have done X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C. But at the time, it seems like the Giants were comfortable with the group of interior defensive linemen that they had, and were banking on development. You can't build a roster of a contending team without having your young guys develop.
Yeah.
That's a winning team is made up of a lot of guys on their rookie contracts.
Hey, what did we say this offseason? The most important key to the Giants' success this year for all the young guys to take the next step. We said it a million times, and that remains the case. So these guys are going to have to step up and do a good job. We are going to end the show a couple minutes early today. We have coordinators in about 3 or 4 minutes outside, so we want to make sure we get to them. Either Citak or Salmon will be tweeting out what those guys say outside, so we want to get to that. So let's do our kind of final thoughts of the game. I'm not going to be on tomorrow. You'll be on with the Tino. You guys are both staying behind with Pearson to make sure we get our shows on the air. Paul will be with us for Big Blue Kickoff on Saturday morning as well at 7 a.m. on WFAN. For those of you that are up early, go check it out on WFAN.com, the Odyssey app. You can listen live to that show at 7 a.m. on Saturdays. But look, I said it before. Let's give me a 30 burger in this game. And look, if the Panthers score 27 and it's a close game, whatever, I'll live with that. I want 30 points. They could have gone 30 points last week, or they could have got 30 points a few weeks ago. But at the end of the game, they decided not to kind of go for it. Right? You had the penalties and stuff like that. You had the offensive pass interference penalty, that sort of stuff. Get to 30 points. Get to 30 points. Score 30 points. Get to 30 points. That's what I'm looking for.
How many points?
30. I want 30 points. I want 30 points. 30 points. Just get to 30. I don't care if you run it. I don't care if DJ throws for 300, they run for 75, or if they run for 200 and DJ throws for 135. Just get to 30 points, win the turnover battle, have a nice, fun trip to Munich so we have an enjoyable 7.5-hour flight home.
30 what?
Points.
Gotcha.
For me, the biggest thing I want to see is just, and this might sound basic, but I just want to see good fundamental football. I want to see this team decrease, I guess, the self-inflicted mistakes and errors that we've seen between penalties and turnovers. I mean, we just discussed the reason that the red zone conversion percentage is the last in the NFL. Not all of them, but a lot of them is because of just mistakes, mental mistakes.
You're going to make me go back and look at all these red zone failures now to see how many of them were self-inflicted wounds, aren't you? I'm honestly kind of curious after we just remembered so many just off the top of our heads. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's more than you'd hope. And look, I think if the Giants are able to, succeed in that area, limit those mental mistakes, whether it's penalties or turnovers on offense, and then this Giants team has the talent, I think, to obviously contend with anyone in the NFL when the team is playing up to its potential. I think that if they can do that, then they could win this game, and I think it could be not that close. Obviously, that would require the Giants to play up to their full potential, which they've only done a couple of times this season. If the Giants bring their A game on all three sides of the ball, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to easily win this game. But that's something that they need to start doing on a consistent basis, and because we haven't seen it that much this year. But I think the team is capable of it, and I think / sure hope that this week we see it again, because we've only seen it pretty much in the 2 wins this season is when they really played. I'm not going to say mistake-free football, but for the most part, they played pretty good football on all 3 sides of the ball. I think there's a good chance we see it again on Sunday.
I need to look at this again now. You know where the Giants are ranked in goal-to-goal situations? Touchdown rate?
I'm assuming not great.
Tied for 20th. It's actually not bad.
It's not, considering where they rank in red zone conversion overall.
All right. Part of my – I always do a little self-scout during the bye. I'm going to have to look at all the red zone appearances now and see how they all failed. That's going to be annoying, but I'm going to do it for the good of the show.
And I want to see the defense get after Bryce Young this week.
Yes, make him look like a rookie quarterback.
Last week was
the
first time all season the Giants were held without a sack. Obviously, they still lead the NFL in sacks with 35, 4 more than any other team, and that's with putting up the 0 last week. This is a Panthers team that has not given up a ton of sacks, as you mentioned earlier.
They've only allowed more than 2 sacks at a game twice this year.
The offensive line has played pretty well, but Bryce Young is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL since the start of the 2023 season. And that's with him not playing every game this year. So this is a good chance for the pass rush. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns against his former team, Azeez Ojulari to get back on track, get after Bryce Young, force him into making mistakes, and good things should come from it.
Citak, hold down the fort for us, big man.
Will do.
For Matthew Citak, I'm John Schmeelk. Thank you to Pearson. He'll be here minding the shop as well. I am John Schmeelk. I'm off to Munich, to Tino and Citak tomorrow. And by the way, next week, just to get ahead of things, we're going to have 2 shows next week, live Monday and Tuesday. Then we are going to take some much-needed time off. We'll have some huddles and draft seasons coming up, Papa's perspective, things like that. I think other points during the week. So there'll be some content, just only Big Blue Kickoff live on Monday and Tuesday. As always, it's presented by Cadillac, the official vehicle of the Giants. Thanks for being with us, everybody. I'll talk to you from Munich. I'm going to try to call into the show tomorrow from Munich. I'm going to see if I can pull that one off. All right?
We'd love for you to join us.
We'll talk to you then. Adios.
Lowe's knows you want to get even more value for the holiday. That's why as a My Lowe's Rewards member, you get new member deals on holiday decor, tools, and more. And you earn points when you shop. More points equal more rewards to help you save on holiday and more. Not a member? Join for free today at Lowes.com/MyLowe'sRewards, because Lowe's knows deals. Program subject to terms and conditions. Points are awarded on eligible purchases. See Lowes.com/terms for full details, subject to change.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food, no matter what you're craving. From 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings. Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week all season long. Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now for game day. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.